At this point, you're probably well aware of some of the detrimental effects that excessive social media usage has on us. It's a very mainstream topic at this point, and it's also incredibly oversaturated. I think most people would agree that if they were to use social media less, or even delete it entirely, they would flourish a lot more as human beings and enjoy a much greater level of well-being. The problem is it's not so easy to put into practice. Social media usage has become so ingrained into our daily routine. It's an impulsive habit at this point, and so breaking free from the clutches of the internet is easier said than done. I've had many people actually express the same sentiment on some of my other videos about phone and social media usage. They want to use it less or to quit social media, but they just struggle to have the willpower. They find themselves hopelessly addicted. So rather than just beat the dead horse by reiterating more and more reasons why it's a good idea to delete social media, in this video I'm going to give my best practical guide for how you can disattach yourself from the digital world. Alright, so the first tip is you essentially want to cultivate resolve for quitting social media. You want to have a clear purpose in mind for why you're doing this. Now, essentially the best way to do this is to imagine where you could be and who you could be 1 year from now if you're actually committed to getting yourself off social media. Now, right now, if you're watching this video and if what I've said has resonated with you at all, you're probably wasting a ton of time watching YouTube videos and scrolling on social media every single day. You're also damaging your attention span and undermining your mental health, and all the whole host of other problems associated with excessive social media usage. So think about all of these problems that social media causes. If you're not that aware, or maybe you just have a vaguely intuitive idea that browsing TikTok or looking at half-naked girls on Instagram isn't the best idea, then I would recommend watching some videos, reading some articles to get yourself really well acquainted with actually how bad it is for you to spend hours and hours every day on social media. Once you're clear on that, you can build a clear idea of what you could actually achieve in concrete terms if you were to break free. Think about the better mental health you can enjoy. Imagine what it would be like to actually have a really high level attention span. You could sit and work for hours without that impulse to go and check your phone. You'd also become a much more disciplined individual and someone who spends a lot more time on productive things, which of course will yield you results in your life. This step sounds kind of abstract and pointless and not that concrete, but it's actually very important. Now, I'm going to give you the best tips I can for being able to overcome your addiction to social media, but at many points, it's simply going to come down to the strength of your willpower. And your willpower is going to be directly proportionate to the level of motivation that you have to see this through and to actually break free from social media. And the level of motivation that you have is going to directly relate to how important and how valuable you see the project of getting away from social media. If you just see it as kind of a cool trend that you might try and see how it goes and maybe it will be good for you, you know, like digital detox, you've seen a lot of people doing that, so why not jump on the bandwagon? You're not going to be committed and you're going to probably just give in to your urges because you don't have a strong reason for doing it. If on the other hand you have a clear idea of exactly how doing this is going to improve yourself and the benefits you can expect to get from it from committing for a year, then the idea of achieving these things is going to be very motivating for you. The same way that someone who's very fat can have a lot of motivation to diet and go to the gym because they have a clear goal in mind. They're going to look a lot better and feel much healthier and increase their lifespan, etc. Whereas if someone's just going to the gym, like, yeah, you know, a lot of people go to the gym, probably they won't turn up very much. Alright, tip number 2. So tip number 2, you want to set measurable concrete goals in place for how you're actually going to go about getting yourself off social media. Now, I personally went completely cold turkey from YouTube, and the same with the other social media apps when I quit them back in, I think, 2018 or something. But if your goal isn't to completely stop using social media and you'd rather take a more gradual approach, then what you need to do is lay out exactly how you're going to reduce your time on social media. Now, my best recommendation for this is to start with the morning. The way that we start our day really affects the rest of the day and how productive we are, you know, how our brain's functioning later in the day. So I would say start your days off right and set 2 hours first thing in the morning where you're not going to check your phone at all, besides maybe just to check what time it is or something like that. But you're not going to use your phone for the first 2 hours after you wake up, and that's how you're going to start reducing your social media. From there, week by week, you can increase that time period for longer and longer and start replacing that social media time with more productive tasks, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. Now, be ambitious when you set these goals. If you're currently using social media for 5 hours or more per day, it's not really going to cut it to say, I'm going to cut it down by 30 minutes on week 1. Be ambitious. If you're not going to go cold turkey, then cut your time down significantly and start with the morning, as I mentioned. And then what you can do is set yourself a window where you can use social media, and that will feel a lot more rewarding. You can check if you're actually achieving your goal by using the phone tracker app that tracks how much you're using different apps. And so you can look at your social media accounts and see, okay, did I use social media for 2 hours or less this week, for example? And of course, you can see if you're abiding by the time rule by just checking the time in the morning and knowing whether or not you use your phone. It's important to set measurable goals because otherwise you won't really have a clear idea of whether you're actually making progress or not. If you set clear goals and you review every week or every day, then you'll feel a sense of satisfaction that you are in concrete terms reducing your social media usage. Perhaps you can check how much you're using it right now, and then you can see, yes, I reduced my usage by 3 hours every day this week. The next tip that's very important is you need replacement activities. If you're going to stop using social media, and social media currently takes up hours of your day, you need something to fill that time with as an alternative. Now, this activity should strike a balance. It should be something that you enjoy, because if it's a chore, then you're not going to be able to commit to using it, to doing it over social media. Because if you're faced with the choice every day of either doing this pleasurable activity that's become your comfort zone and that you're really craving, or doing some chore activity, at some point you're probably going to just break and go with the social media. So you should pick something that you enjoy. But at the same time, it shouldn't just be a junk, useless, detrimental activity, because then that defeats the point of quitting social media if you just replace it with watching Netflix or something instead. Now, personally, what I did when I quit watching YouTube is I went and took out a load of Dostoevsky novels from my university library. It had been a decade since I'd read any fiction, but when I was a kid, I loved to read. I read loads and loads, and then that just completely stopped. So I decided to get myself back into that. It's a much better habit than watching garbage on YouTube. And yeah, I had a great time reading those novels. I was genuinely excited every day to resume reading. And so that's one idea that you could take. You could find a novel that aligns with your interests and try reading it and use that as a substitute for social media. Besides reading, there's a number of productive activities and skills that you can learn instead. You could learn a language, learn a musical instrument. You could learn a monetizable skill like coding or video editing or web design, digital marketing. You could learn a game like chess that at least requires analytical thinking. All of these skills can be learnt from your bedroom. And if, for example, you're using social media for hours every day and you just replace half that time with learning a useful or monetizable skill, genuinely think where your life could be in 1 year when you've committed 1 year to learning this skill and not just dulling your brain down with pointless entertainment on social media. This can help a lot with the resolve step that I outlined in part 1. Say, for instance, you've always kind of wanted to learn a particular language. Well, then just really visualize, okay, right now I use social media 5 hours a day. Now, it's unrealistic that I'm going to spend those 5 hours instead learning the language. But let's say I learn it for 1 hour and a half on average every day from now on for the rest of the year, and I cut out my social media usage. Think where you could have progressed with learning that language. Same with the musical instrument. Or think about any monetizable skill. A lot of people are looking for side hustles in the modern day, stuff they can do online to earn money. Well, think about if you just put some time into learning something like web design or video editing. A year from now, you could genuinely be earning money working for yourself, just using the skill that you've learned. Whatever it is you're going to replace your social media time with, really think about this clearly and develop concrete ideas for where you could be. It's really going to fire up your resolve and make it a lot easier to quit. All right, so you've got your resolve optimized. You've got your replacement activities on deck. So now how do you actually go about refraining from the urges to use social media? Well, the first obvious piece of advice is you want to turn off notifications for all the social media apps, assuming that you're keeping them. Now, the other thing I would say is be honest with yourself and delete any social media app that isn't providing you value. I understand not everyone's going to want to delete YouTube and maybe things like Twitter entirely. Perhaps you think that you do get a bit of value from that. But there's going to be a lot of apps that provide no value, like TikTok and Instagram, that sort of thing. Delete those apps entirely and turn off notifications for the valuable apps. The other thing that you can do is, if there's an app that you just find yourself going on out of habit whenever you pick up your phone, put it in a labyrinth of folders in some obscure place on your phone that's difficult to actually find. This is good because then if you use your phone for some other purpose, you're not just going to click on YouTube out of habit and just before you know it start clicking on shorts or something. If it takes conscious effort to actually find the app, you'll be less likely to go on it. Now, the next thing that I would recommend is, once you decide that you're going to take the plunge and get yourself off social media, identify any accounts that you follow or are subscribed to on any social media apps that you're planning to keep, and unsubscribe from the garbage, low quality accounts you follow. Everything you're subscribed to should serve an actual good purpose in your life. It should provide you value. So if you're following random girls who post half naked photos, or if you're just following junk entertainment, unfollow it now, unsubscribe. At least then, if you do start using social media more than you should, at least you're not going to be consuming such rubbish. And there's also not going to be as many temptations on your homepage. Now, my next tip is another fairly obvious one, but again, very, very crucial for succeeding with getting yourself free from social media. And that's, you want to physically distance yourself from your phone. When you're sleeping, put your phone in a different room. That's going to make it far easier to refrain from waking up in the morning and just picking your phone up. That's probably the worst time that you could use social media. You just set your brain up very poorly for the rest of the day. You set it up to just be craving stimulation and dopamine and not have a very good attention span and not have very good motivation. So put your phone in a different room, and same for when you're working or when you're doing any task and you want to stay away from social media. Just keep your phone in a different room and only have notifications for vital things, like if you need to know if someone's calling you or something like that. When you're out and about, rather than putting your phone in your pocket, keep it in your bag. Again, the key here is you don't want your phone to be in a place where you can just pick it up out of impulse. If it's in a place right immediately accessible, then you're just inevitably going to, out of habit, pick it up, and before you know it, you'll be scrolling on in social media apps. The key here as well is, don't do any coping when you're going through this process of adjudicating between that which provides you value and that which doesn't. The vast majority of stuff probably isn't really providing you value. You might think that it is. Maybe it's an account tweeting about business or productivity or whatever. But in reality, there's a good chance that you just get dopamine hits from reading what they say and feeling productive because you feel like you're listening to good advice. But in reality, do you actually put these advice into practice to gain concrete results? If so, then perhaps it provides you value. But I think from personal experience, a lot of the time this isn't the case. Now, besides these kinds of monetizable skills, another great thing that you can do that I've focused on heavily since I've quit watching YouTube videos is you can actually create your own pieces of creative work. Besides these monetizable skills and other activities, another thing that's really beneficial that I've been focusing on a lot since coming off YouTube in terms of consuming YouTube is actually producing your own creative works. Whether that be artistic works, painting, that sort of thing, or writing your own novel, producing your own YouTube videos. Whatever it is, there's a multitude of creative works that you could be producing. Everyone has interests, everyone has hobbies. There could be many creative tasks that you could produce of great value over the next year if you spend your time creating and producing rather than just consuming. Another thing to note is, never mistake craving for genuine fatigue. Once you quit social media, your brain is going to be craving and craving for you to just stimulate it with the phone and with social media. It's basically become your brain's comfort zone, and you will often feel discomfort if you're not giving it that stimulation, that dopamine that it wants. And this can discourage you from engaging in the replacement activity because you think that you're too tired and you need to just lay in bed, and then one thing leads to another and you're on your phone again. But what this is not genuine fatigue a lot of the time. It's just your brain craving. It's just your brain being low on dopamine and wanting it. Now, this effect is temporary, and if you really commit to reducing your social media usage, you can return your brain's baseline levels of dopamine a lot higher to where you won't be craving for the stimulation all the time. And you can, in a much more easier fashion, focus on these more productive tasks. So with that, I'm going to wrap up this video, try and keep it concise. But if you have any tips of your own to share in the comments, do let me know. And yeah, let me know if you're going to embark on this social media free journey. I'd love to hear about your results. And yeah, if you're engaging with what I've advised, then I will not see you in the next video. But if you're watching this video and you're not going to quit social media, then I will see you in the next video.